Good morning. So today we're going to review two of the questions that we left off yesterday. So this is number 2. So here my B is 5. So 5 is greater than 1. So this is going to be a growth problem. Okay. The domain here is all real numbers. Okay. So now let's graph. So we plug in some values for our x and we solve for the y. So plug in -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay. So when I plug in -2 there, okay, so if I plug in -2 for my x, I'm going to get 5 raised to the -2 power plus a 1. Okay, so it's a fraction, right? So it's 1 over 25, okay, which is a decimal, 0.04, plus a 1. So this is going to be 1.04. Okay, if we plug in a -1, we're going to get 5 raised to the -1st power plus a 1. So this is 1 over 5, so that's a 0.2 plus a 1, so it's going to be 1.2. If you plug in 0 for your x, anything to the 0 power is always 1, so this is going to be a 2. Okay, if you plug in a 1, you're going to have 5 to the 1st power plus a 1, so you're going to have a 6. And f of 2, so 5 squared plus a 1, so 5 squared is a 25, so it's going to be a 26. Okay? Alright, so -2, 1.04. So -2, so it's going to be what, right? I'm going to try my best to do that. Okay? -1, 1.2, so it's going to be barely up there. At 0, we're going to be at 2. At 1, we're going to be at 6. And at 2, it's going to be off of here, but 2 is going to be way up there. Okay? So as your x value gets smaller, okay, so if I kept plugging in my x values getting smaller right here, -1, -2, if I plug in -100, my y value is approaching 1, but it's never going to touch 1, okay? So it's never going to touch that 1 there. The y equals 1. So that is, remember, called your asymptote. So we can draw our line, but it's never going to touch that 1. Okay, so your asymptote is y equals 1. Okay, so then your range is going to be all values greater than 1. And your y-intercept, we found it right here because when we plug in 0 for our x, you're always going to be finding your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is 0, 2. Okay? Alright, let's do number 4 here. So number 4 here, we've got our b is a 1/3. So 1/3 is less than 1, so this is going to be a decay. Okay, so domain here, all real numbers. Okay, so now we need to graph, so we like to plug in those values. So -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. You could have chosen -10, -5, 0, 5, 10. Doesn't matter what you plug in. Okay? Alright, so when you have a negative, so this is going to be a 1/3 raised to the -2 power minus a 2. So 1/3 raised to the -2, so that could be positive by saying 3 squared minus 2. So it's going to be a 9 minus a 2, which is going to be a 7. Now if you plug in a 1, so it's going to be a 1/3 raised to the negative first power minus a 2. So 1/3, so it's going to be a 3 minus a 2, which is going to be a 1. Okay? Alright, anything to the 0 power is always just a 1. So 1 minus a 2 is a negative 1. Okay? If you plug in a 1 there, you'll have 1/3 raised to the first power minus a 2. So you'll have 1/3, and 1/3 is like that decimal point 6666666 minus a 2. So, I'm sorry, 1/3 is the decimal point 33333 minus a 2. So that's going to be a negative 1.666 continued. Okay, so 1/3 squared minus a 2, so it's like a 1/9 minus a 2. And 1/9 is a 0.1111 minus a 2, so that's going to be a negative 1.88 continued. Okay, so the asymptote here, okay, it's a decay problem. So as my x value gets larger and larger and larger, my y value is getting closer and closer to -2, but it's never going to touch that -2. Okay, so -2 is down here. So you can just draw that. You don't have to draw that line. It's not necessary. Just know that it just gets close and close to that value, but never touches it. So your asymptote is y equals -2. So that means your range is going to be greater, all values greater than a -2. You found your y-intercept right there. So your y-intercept is 0, -1. Okay. All right, so now let's plot these points. So -2 all the way up to 7. So -2, 5, 6, 7. -1 at 1. 0 at -1. Okay. 1 at -1.16 and 1.18. Okay. And plug in there for me. Do 1/3 raised to the 100th power. Okay. 1/3 raised to the 100th power minus your 2. So this is going to give you a scientific notation, right? Okay, if you did it to the 100th power, it's going to be roughly -2, but it is still a decimal. -1.194 times 10 to the -49th power. So it's going to be something so tiny, but it's so close to that -2. Okay, so that's why that -2 would be our asymptote. So the graph is going to look like this. Okay.